everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I will be making my first ever Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump 2024 presidential election official prediction, as Kamala Harris being the presumptive Democratic nominee for president. So, this is the most important election prediction I have made maybe ever, or definitely in quite a while, because this race has completely changed. We just have 3 months until election day, basically, and or more than 3 months, sorry. But this election has completely changed in the matter of a few days, or a month after the debate, after Joe Biden's horrible performance in the debate, with Kamala Harris being a candidate, with Biden endorsing Kamala Harris, and enough state delegations to the DNC to endorsing Kamala Harris to make her the presumptive Democratic nominee for president in 2024. So, this is a whole new race. This is a completely new ballgame, and this election prediction is very important as a start, as a basis of where we are starting in this whole new race. So I did wait a few days to make this video because I want to give you guys quality predictions, and we did need some more data to come in, more polls to come in to make an accurate election assessment. So this will be a very in-depth video. I do want to put that out there, and watch, enjoy, sit back, relax, and if you enjoy this type of content, please make sure to subscribe. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. Drop a like, drop a comment. And with that being said, let's get started with this Harris versus Trump election prediction. So I do want to note right off the bat that this election, if it were held tomorrow, it would be very different, I feel, from the election actually in November. So Decision Desk HQ has their average of polls. They have Donald Trump leading Kamala Harris by 2.1%. Most aggregates, most averages of polls do fall somewhere around there. Most fall a little closer, but around 2%. Now that is RFK Jr. included as well, and it looks like he's going to get on near all 50 state ballots. So that's 2.1% popular vote lead for Trump. That's nationwide, and remember, the election is not decided by the popular vote. The electoral vote decides the election outcome. And for Democrats to win the electoral vote, what recent elections have proven is that Democrats need to win the popular vote by somewhere at least 2 points. We don't have an exact number, of course, because there isn't an exact number. Things can change. But, technically speaking, they don't have to win the popular vote at all. But it looks like Democrats need somewhere around 2%. So obviously, if Donald Trump is leading the popular vote as he is right now in the election we held tomorrow, he would win, because if Republicans are winning the popular vote, they are very, very likely to win the Electoral College as well. So obviously, Kamala Harris has some ground to make up. But we have to remember, Kamala Harris announced her candidacy on Sunday. Joe Biden dropped out on Sunday. This whole new race has only been, active for some 6 days, really. And Kamala Harris has not defined herself to many American voters. But still, she is only 2.1% down from Donald Trump, who was president for 4 years, who has been running this campaign, this 2024 presidential campaign, for years. Americans have watched him on the debate stage. Americans already have an opinion of Donald Trump, whether that be negative, positive, or neutral. Harris, yes, she's the vice president of the United States. Yes, people know who she is, but they don't have strong opinions of her yet. So she has an opportunity, of course, which she will take, to, create this idea of Kamala Harris as being a likable politician, a good vice president in the minds of American voters. My point is, Kamala Harris is, I'm not saying she's at her floor, but while Donald Trump is hovering around his ceiling, meaning the maximum amount of support he can get, Kamala Harris is just at her floor. She can gain more support, unlike Donald Trump. Now remember, she hasn't picked her vice president yet. This will be incredibly important. She has a huge bench of strong VP candidates to choose from. I'm telling you, Roy Cooper, Mark Kelly, Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, Andy Bashir, even J.B. Pritzker would enormously help the ticket, especially a few of these like Cooper and Shapiro or Kelly, when you look at the electoral map and where these people are from. They help tremendously. But all of these candidates, I feel, whether it be small or big, will add a boost in polling numbers for the ticket. I mean, which one you think is the strongest? That's the topic for another video, which of course I've made. But all of them are strong candidates. And then, the DNC hasn't even happened yet. That is another thing. Donald Trump has picked his running mate already, J.D. Vance. He obviously didn't get a boost from that. J.D. Vance is a horrible candidate. But they also have already gone through their convention. Now, what history has proven us is that candidates do get a boost from their conventions, believe it or not. Americans tuning into that convention, hearing them speak, that does provide a boost. Donald Trump led in the Real Clear Politics polling average nationwide for, I think, a total of 5 days in the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections. Both of those elections, he only led for 5 days. Those days were in 2016, all 5 of them, right after the RNC. So it does matter. The DNC has not even happened yet. Not to mention, and I'll start with my map now, pretty soon. I know that's what you all are waiting for, but this is important. The debates haven't even occurred yet between Trump and Harris. Of course, the debate caused Joe Biden to drop out, but a Harris debate is a whole lot different, and I'll just predict it now. Of course, I'll make multiple videos on this in the future, but I believe that Harris would destroy Donald Trump in a debate. But when you look in the future, the events leading up to the election, all of those would benefit Kamala Harris. Are there any more events that, like a VP selection or a DNC or a debate that would help Trump? I really don't think so. So with that being said, let's get started with this election prediction. So we will start with our safe Democratic states. These are states that will be decided by a 15% margin for their respective candidate or more. So we do have our 2020 election map up. So I believe that Kamala Harris will carry all or almost every state that went to Joe Biden by a safe margin in 2020. I believe that Kamala Harris would be able to replicate that. Now, obviously, because of why, I just said that, so what that implies is that Harris is matching Biden's numbers. Now, I don't believe that goes for the nation as a whole. I really don't. But I do think that her numbers will skyrocket in blue states with urban areas because young voters are very prominent there, and young voters are very enthusiastic about Kamala Harris. That is what is being shown so far. Also minorities, high minority population, racial minorities in urban areas, obviously. Black voters, very prominent in urban areas. They are going to fall strongly for Harris. So that's Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. New York is safe. Connecticut is safe. I had to think about that one for a second, but Connecticut is safe. That went to Biden in 2020. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine's 1st District, Delaware, and Maryland, as well as Washington, D.C., are all safe for Kamala Harris. And I would throw Illinois into that group. The single one that is not safe is the state of New Jersey. Now, looking at Colorado, it is trending heavily blue. I would even say that Kamala Harris builds on Biden's 2020 numbers in the state of Colorado specifically, and that Colorado, for the first time, since the election of, before 1960, Colorado hasn't gone to the Democrats by a safe margin. So I believe that Colorado goes safe blue. That gives Kamala Harris and whoever her VP is 177 electoral votes. Now, as for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, I got to be honest, I think that while Kamala Harris matches Biden's 2020 numbers in blue states, I think that she loses support in red states. These are more rural, conservative areas, and while Joe Biden, did position himself as more of a moderate in the 2020 election, that made him able to make it, not a complete blowout. While Harris is more progressive, more liberal, I think that she would fare much worse than someone like Biden in rural, more conservative areas. So I think that Utah, or, basically every state that went to Trump in the 2020 election by a safe margin, I think all of them are once again safe. That's Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska at large. Nebraska's 1st district, which was likely in 2020, now becomes safe, as well as the 3rd district. I think that Kansas becomes safe. That was likely. Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, Indiana, all safe, and I would even put Alaska as safe. That was likely back in 2020. Now, there is one more. I said how Harris would just, absolutely collapse in rural regions. Iowa, very rural state. I think that goes to Donald Trump by a safe margin. He only won it by 8 in 2020, so you can see how much more Republican a state like Iowa will get. So that puts Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, his running mate, at 122 electoral votes. So now we move on to likely states. These are states that will be decided by a 5 to 15% margin, so a bit closer, but we do generally know how they're going to vote. Starting with Kamala Harris. So recent polls came out, and what I said about blue states, these urban areas, Kamala Harris is now boosting enthusiasm and turnout, it appears, in blue states. Let's just take a look at some polls I found extremely interesting. For example, the state of Maine, which is a blue state, Joe Biden won it by 9.1% in 2020. There was a new poll released yesterday. Third parties included in the other. But Harris versus Trump one-on-one. Harris wins by 9. She wins by 8 with third parties. So what we are seeing is, just what I was saying before. Kamala Harris is matching Joe Biden's numbers in blue states. And New Hampshire as well. The same pollster conducted a poll in New Hampshire. Harris was ahead by 6, with third parties by 7 head-to-head. Joe Biden, wrong tab. Joe Biden won it by 7.4, so she's basically matching Biden's numbers. Now, these two states were particularly surprising because these are overwhelmingly white states, and, the narrative was that Harris would do very poor among white voters. That clearly is not the case. Even in these white-blue states, she is still doing very well. So I believe that in these states that were relatively close, I guess, in 2020, like Minnesota, which voted for Biden by 7, or in New Mexico, which voted for him by 10.8. These states that aren't quite safe, but aren't quite battleground either, they were looking very competitive with Biden as the nominee because of how weak he was as a candidate. But with now, higher enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, it doesn't appear that is true anymore. So I believe that, of course, New Jersey goes likely, but I believe that New Hampshire is now a likely state. Maine at large is now a likely state for Kamala Harris. I believe that Minnesota is likely. Virginia is absolutely likely. I think we are looking towards a 10-point victory like it was in 2020. And I think that New Mexico is likely. I think that all of these states will fall towards Kamala Harris in her column because of how, this new data that's showing that she is, that she is able to match Biden's numbers. And again, you have to keep this in mind. This is so important. This is days into her presidential campaign. Literally days into her campaign. I believe that, again, she is at her floor. She only has room to expand. Donald Trump does not. So now we move on. Of course, Kamala Harris now at 225 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. So Kamala Harris is already almost there, which is just stark contrast with my predictions when it was Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. So as for Donald Trump, his likely states. Ohio probably becomes more Republican. Actually, it absolutely becomes more Republican. This is a trending Republican state, somewhat rural, and Harris really doesn't have any appeal outside the cities, and, Biden ran up his numbers in the cities, so whatever. Ohio, will not get competitive. South Carolina stays a likely state. Harris does good with African American voters, which are very important in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Florida specifically. Most importantly in Georgia, though, and we'll get to that. But South Carolina stays a likely state. Maine at large is close to being safe. Trump definitely increases his numbers here compared to 2020. And then we've got Texas, but, Texas, it went to Biden by 5.6. And I'm just going to do Florida now as well. Two huge states that are hugely important in elections that make this a whole lot closer. Texas has 40 electoral votes. Florida has 30. That's a combined 70 that we just added to Donald Trump's column. But the voter bloc that are, the minority voter bloc that are so prominent in Texas and Florida, approaching a majority status, are Latino voters. And Donald Trump has been able, in 2020 at least, he was able to characterize Democrats as communists and socialists, just tie them to socialism and communism in just a tremendous way that we had never seen before, really, for a Republican candidate. Remember, Latinos in Florida and Texas became more Republican in 2020 compared to 2016. That was not the case across the country. And Florida specifically, you've got, while in the rest of the country, most Latinos, most Hispanics are Mexican immigrants. In Florida, many are Cuban, Venezuelan, Colombian. They escaped those countries because solely they wanted capitalism in the United States, and they were against the socialist, policies of their home countries. And Donald Trump, being able to tie Democrats to socialism really boosted his numbers among this voter bloc. So Texas and Florida going to Donald Trump is huge, and especially Kamala Harris being much more liberal, much more progressive than Joe Biden. I believe that Donald Trump will be able to very effectively make that relation between communism and Kamala Harris. So, with that being said, Kamala Harris is now at 225 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 219. You need 270 to win. This is a dead heat as of right now. So we have, we have 7 states remaining, plus Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That's 94 electoral votes total. And we move into our lean states. These are states that will be decided by a 1 to 5% margin. So these are close now. These are getting really, really close. And we'll start with Kamala Harris. I believe that Nebraska's 2nd district sees a slight trend to the left. A slight trend to the right, towards the Republicans, towards Trump. Really, the nation as a whole, it's undeniable, I believe, will at least go slightly shift towards the left compared to 2020, at least. So in a state, or in a district, I should say, that Biden carried by 6.6% in the last election, we could expect it to shift 2 or 3 or even 4 points to the right. Regardless, Kamala Harris, it won't shift that much to lose. Kamala Harris wins Nebraska's 2nd district. So that leaves us with our 5 last states. And I believe that there is only one lean state for Kamala Harris out of these remaining 7, which is really not that good. And that's the state of Michigan. That's 15 electoral votes. That's huge. And Michigan is a state that it's one of these that voted for Trump in 2016 and Biden in 2020. Now, 6 of these 7 states did that. North Carolina did not. Now, Michigan, all of these remaining states, this is where the VP pick is hugely important. Now, I'm not saying that Harris would pick Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, as her VP, but really someone like Tim Walz or Josh Shapiro or even someone like Andy Beshear a little bit south, they all help run up numbers for Democrats in the Rust Belt. They are all more Democrats who are going to be viewed as fighting for the working class, in contrast with Kamala Harris, who is, viewed as more liberal, more progressive, more focused on social rather than economic issues that white working class voters care about. So the VP pick matters so much, but I'm just, assuming, or I'm just making this prediction right now. as if there were no VP. But still, I believe that Kamala Harris would be able to win the state of Michigan. Michigan, you've got a prominent African American community. You got multiple urban areas in this state, Detroit specifically, obviously. And I believe, that is the coalition that led Joe Biden to victory in 2020. And out of the 6 states that he flipped in 2020, that's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan voted for Joe Biden by 2.8%. Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, those are razor thin, right? That's about a 50-50 margin. That's whatever. A few people forgetting to vote. That could make or break the outcome of these states. Now, Michigan, on the other hand, is a 2.8 margin isn't the worst margin in the world. It does lean Democratic. It is more of a Democratic state than a Republican state, and these elections have proven us that. Looking back at 2022, we had a governor's race here in 2022, and Gretchen Whitmer won re-election by 10.5%. The Michigan House Democrats, like in the Michigan House of Representatives, they crushed the competition, as well as the state Senate. And this goes for many of these states. A lot of these states are Democratic. There are more Democratic voters than Republican. They lean Democratic. But the problem was with Joe Biden. Oh my God, Shapiro won by 14.9. That's insane. I forgot how much of a blowout that was. Anyway, the problem with Biden is that he was just such an incredibly weak candidate. I mean, there is no denying that. I mean, that's what it boils down to. He was such a weak candidate for a multitude of reasons. But Kamala Harris is actually a normal candidate. This is the main point. She is a normal candidate who could get normal Democratic turnout. That is all Democrats need to do. Democrats are popular. Democrats are good at winning elections. The problem was Joe Biden was not. Kamala Harris is normal enough of a candidate to compare to these margins to get Democrats to turn out for her. That is the point. That goes for Michigan and Pennsylvania specifically, but as well as other Democratic states. Nevada is a state that leans Democrat. Wisconsin probably leans a little Democrat. Their governor won re-election by 3.4 in 2020. So a state like Michigan, I definitely think that Kamala Harris does win the state by about a point. Obviously, it shifts to the right a bit. So, as I said, that's it for lean Democratic states. Now, as for Donald Trump, let's see, where does he win? Now, again, this prediction right now is without a Harris VP. Now, if she chooses Roy Cooper of North Carolina, the popular governor of North Carolina becomes a whole new race. That gets a lot closer. But as of right now, with the narrative that she doesn't have a VP right now, I believe that North Carolina would fall to Donald Trump to around the same margin that it went to in 2020. Now, North Carolina was the one battleground state of the 7 that did vote for Trump in 2020. Trump won it by 1.3%, a very narrow margin, but still a win for Trump. This is, Trump won it by 3.7 in 2016. It even voted for Romney in 2012, but Obama won it, just narrowly in 2008. And they have had multiple Senate races lately, and it's just the one state that Democrats, it's always close, but Democrats can't ever seem to manage to grab it. They can't ever win it, except on the gubernatorial level. I don't think that Kamala Harris, yes, she would win African American voters, but how different would that turnout be from 2020? Really? Yes, she is an African American woman. I guess you could argue that she wins, or that she gets higher turnout among African Americans than Biden did in 2020. But, with all the BLM protests, with everything like that, with the social uprising and all that, I really doubt that Kamala Harris can outperform Joe Biden's 2020 numbers among African Americans that much to, make North Carolina turn blue. That goes for Georgia. as well, other states with high African American populations. Now, Georgia actually went blue in 2020, so if you're saying that Harris can match Biden's numbers, which I think she can among African Americans, then you can say Harris wins Georgia. North Carolina, you can't, because Trump won it in 2020. I think North Carolina does go to Trump by some 1.3% or 1.5%, whatever. So, yeah, that's where I think things stand in North Carolina. I also think that Trump carries Wisconsin by a lean margin. Now, we haven't been looking at polls too much, but looking at polls, Wisconsin, don't mind that average. That's still with Trump. But I would not say that polls are looking good for Harris in Wisconsin. Now, on the I don't know what the word is I'm trying to look for, but when you look at them from a simple basis, they do look good. Harris versus Trump, third parties included, it's even. It's 50-50. Harris versus Trump, Trump up by 1. That's not bad. Even in the Fox News poll, Harris up by 1 when you just include Kennedy and Stein. Harris up by 1. However, election after election after election, Wisconsin polling, for whatever reason, overestimates Democrats. And this goes for many states. For example, in the opposite example, Nevada always overestimates Republicans in polling. It just happens every election year. 2016 Nevada showed Trump winning. Hillary won it by 2.4. In 2020, polls said, on average, we can even see it here actually, that Biden would win by 8. He won it by 0.6. It was way off. So I truly think that there will be a similar example, and that Donald Trump will end up winning Wisconsin. I just feel that Harris doesn't have enough appeal in a state like Wisconsin. Way more white than states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. Very, very white voter-dominated state. Now, let's see. We've got Nevada, Arizona. These are tough. But I am going to give Arizona to Trump by about 1.5 points. What brought Biden to victory, a very narrow victory, in Arizona in 2020, was his strange coalition of the suburban moms, which Harris is matching Biden's numbers, we can see. But even more importantly, which narrowly tilted the state to him, was the high amount of Republicans, or conservative independents, that voted for him. Now, there are many traditional Republicans in Arizona. McCain Republicans. Remember, John McCain was from the state. And traditional, more moderate, or I shouldn't even say moderate, just traditional, kind of anti-Trump Republicans always do well in Arizona primaries. They might not win, but they still win more of the vote than in other states when, compared to similar candidates in other states. So, those types of candidates do well. There's a prominent anti-Trump Republican coalition in Arizona that voted for Biden, many of them in 2020, which brought him to victory. Biden was moderate. He really was. He still is a moderate Democrat. Kamala Harris is not. She is far more liberal. And Donald Trump, I believe that the main narrative that Donald Trump and the Republicans will try to set in this election is that Kamala Harris is a radical liberal. Radical liberal, radical liberal, radical communist, radical socialist. He will drill that into people's minds. While he really couldn't attack Joe Biden on that. People knew that Biden was a moderate Democrat. Obviously, someone like Joe Biden is not going to be a radical liberal. That messaging didn't work in 2020. I believe that Harris, with, the facts, her being more liberal, more progressive than Biden, way more, I think that might be effective, especially to these more center-right, anti-Trump conservatives, Republicans, in a state like Arizona. I believe that turnout will be low, and Arizona does go to Donald Trump. So that leaves us with 3 states, and we still don't have an election winner. That's Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes, Georgia with 16, Nevada with 6. I believe that all of these states will fall within a margin of under 1%, making them all tilt states. So Donald Trump has taken the lead with 256 electoral votes. He is 14 votes away from victory. Kamala Harris at 241. she is 19 votes away from, 29 votes away from victory. So let's start. So first off, with Kamala Harris, I believe that she will win the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is out of the 7 battleground states in 2024 that I outlined before. Pennsylvania has the most electoral votes at 19. It is hugely important. Now, I will also bring back the mention about her VP selection. The VP pick matters so much. It might be Josh Shapiro, who would absolutely help win the state. He is the governor and so popular. He would bring Harris a victory in Pennsylvania. But still, even without him on the ticket, I think that she wins it. What's most important in the state is suburban, not even suburban women, but just the suburbs. What we saw in the shift from 2016 to 2020 in the state of Pennsylvania, the region of the state that shifted the most towards Democrats from 2016 to 2020 was the suburbs around Philadelphia. The state went 49 to 48 for Trump in 2016, and then it went 50 to 49 for Biden in 2020. So that's a 2-point shift to the Democrats from the latest 2 elections. That's just 2 points statewide. But it is a much more dramatic shift when you look at the suburbs of Pennsylvania. In 2016, Hillary won Chester County, Pennsylvania by 9.5. In 2020, Biden won it by 17. So while the state shifted 2 points to the left, Chester County, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, shifted 7 or 8 points to the left. That's huge. Similar examples go for Montgomery, Bucks, and Delaware counties. Now, what we are seeing now, this is in stark contrast when Biden was the nominee. But presidential polling amongst suburban women, we have new data. Harris leads 52 to 40. That's a 12-point win for Kamala Harris. When Biden was in the race, he led by 3. Suburban women are huge. Kamala Harris is now the Democrats are now skyrocketing among their numbers with suburban women, with Harris, a woman herself, as the nominee. Harris's gender could very well bring her victory in the 2024 election, despite her being a woman, despite that, being viewed as negatively. When you look at the electoral map where it matters, it might just carry her to victory in Pennsylvania. I think it will. And then we have Nevada. There's conflicting opinions, really, just to put it generally, about Latinos for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. I believe ultimately that she really doesn't do that well with them compared to Biden's 2020 numbers. In Nevada, it is trending a bit to the right, it seems. I believe that Donald Trump does take Nevada. I'm not going to go too depth into this because it only has 6 electoral votes. In the end, it probably won't matter. But I feel that Kamala Harris, or with Donald Trump's messaging, connecting Kamala Harris to communism and socialism. Again, many of these immigrants come from communist countries, Venezuela, Colombia, from South America. And I think that messaging really will be effective. I think that Nevada does go to Donald Trump. That puts him at 262. So what does that mean? That means everything comes down to the state of Georgia. Georgia, which voted for Joe Biden. This is big. It was a Biden state in 2020. It voted for him by 0.24%, which was, 12,000, 13,000 votes, something like that. So, this state will be, I believe, the most important state in the 2024 election. I think it will be by far the narrowest. Now, of course, this is a southern state, and African American voters are hugely important. And as I said before, there is nothing to indicate that right now Harris is doing worse among African Americans than Joe Biden in 2020. Now, it makes sense, of course. Kamala Harris is an African American woman. African American turnout, I believe, will be just as high for Kamala Harris as it was for Biden in 2020. Additionally, yes, there are suburban voters around Georgia, around the Atlanta area. They're most known in Arizona and Pennsylvania for their significance, but they also matter in Georgia. And what we have to remember with this whole election nationwide is that Donald Trump is a weak candidate. Voters do not like Donald Trump. I believe in the end, Kamala Harris will come out on top in the state of Georgia after the convention, after the debates. I think that she will effectively make her case to African American voters, and I believe that she will campaign hard in this state. Obviously, both of them will. It will matter, who will be more effective. But I believe that Kamala Harris will win the state of Georgia and win the presidency in 2024 with 276 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 262. Now, as you all know, I'm a very unbiased channel, and I know that this is probably this is a hot take. I believe that most people do not believe that Kamala Harris will win the presidency. But again, what matters so much is looking at these numbers now. She has so much room to grow while Donald Trump is already at his ceiling. He really can't gain much more. I don't think he will. Looking at the numbers we have now, yes, she's trailing, but by election day, I believe she will win. This will be an incredible election, an incredibly close election, I feel, and it will matter. So, thank you all for watching this very long video. I appreciate you all watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Drop a comment to let me hear your thoughts. I know that all of you will have different opinions on this. Let me know your thoughts. Give me good points in the comments that I will be like, oh yeah, that does make sense. I'll definitely take that into consideration. But again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.